Godly Play at Church of the Advent. I am Miss Sally, and together with Miss Celia and Miss Kim, we will do the story of Paul's travels and his letters. Let's get ready.
In the beginning, the baby was born. His mother and father named him Saul after the first king of Israel. His home was in a city called Tarsus, near the sea. As the boy grew, he helped his father in his shop. Saul's father made tents. Even though Saul's family lived far from Rome and were Jewish, they were made Roman citizens like many others in the city. Perhaps this had something to do with making tents for the Roman army. Saul heard many languages in the streets of Tarsus, but it was the language of the synagogue he loved most. His father and he read the Torah together. Saul was very serious about knowing the Hebrew Bible. Saul grew. When it was time, he decided to go to the great city of Jerusalem so he could have the best of all the teachers. He waved goodbye to his family and home in Tarsus and traveled to the holy city. When Saul entered the city through a great high gate, he went first to the temple. He worshipped there. That is probably also where he studied and worked. His teacher was Gamaliel, or another rabbi in Gamaliel's family. Saul wanted to be one of the Pharisees, who worked hard to understand and keep all the laws in the Torah. Saul worked hard to understand and keep the laws. He had no time or patience for people who did not. One day he heard about the followers of the way. They thought that the Messiah had come. It was Jesus of Nazareth. When Saul heard that, he became angry. The Messiah was supposed to drive away the Roman soldiers and rule with justice and mercy. Jesus was a criminal who was crucified. Besides, in the law, it says that God curses any criminal who is hanged upon a tree. These people were telling lies about God. He had to stop them from saying such things. Stephen was one of the most important of the followers of the way. The priests in the temple decided to punish him. He was taken outside the city walls to be killed. Saul held the coats of the ones who threw stones at Stephen until he died. Then Saul was given a letter by the high priest to go to Damascus to catch more followers of the way and bring them back to Jerusalem for punishment. Saul traveled to Damascus. One afternoon he climbed up the road toward the city. Suddenly there was a great light. It was so bright that he fell to the ground. He could see nothing. In his darkness, a voice came to him. "Saul, Saul, why are you trying to hurt me? Why are you persecuting me?" All Saul could say was, "Who are you, Lord?" The voice answered, "I am Jesus, the one you are persecuting. Get up, go into the city. You will be told what to do." Saul tried to get up. He looked for the path, but he was blind. Saul was led into the city and left at a house on Straight Street. For 3 days he went without food or water. Then, in the chaos and the darkness of his blindness, he heard another voice. "Hello, brother Saul. I am Ananias. I was sent by Jesus to lay hands on you and bless you." When Ananias's hands touched Saul, something like the scales from a fish fell from his eyes and he could see. Then Ananias baptized him. Saul was changed forever. He could feel the power of the Holy Spirit growing inside of him. Then Ananias and Saul ate together. Slowly Saul regained his strength. When he was better, he went to the synagogue to tell his fellow Jews the good news about what had happened to him. When they heard what Saul said, they tried to kill him. They even put guards at the city gate to catch him if he tried to get away. But followers of the way hid Saul in the city, and they couldn't find him. One night, when it was dark, Saul and a small group of the followers of the way climbed quietly to the top of the city wall. They carried a large basket and lots of rope. They tied the rope to the basket, and Saul climbed inside. They lowered him down the wall, and he disappeared into the dark. Saul went into the desert of Arabia. He was confused and needed to understand what God wanted him to do. He had to come to Damascus to catch the followers of the way, but now he was one of them. What did this mean? Saul prayed. He watched the empty desert and listened to its silence. He came so close to God, and God came so close to him, that he knew what God wanted him to do. He was to travel to the ends of the earth and tell people what had happened to him. His work was to try to say how his hate had turned into love, and to begin churches where people could show how this was done. He also was to write letters to help new churches do this. Saul began his work. He sailed across the sea. He walked across the land. He went back to Jerusalem to meet Peter, James, and the others there, now called Christians. They were suspicious, but they finally said to keep telling the story to the Gentiles, the non-Jews. Saul even changed his name. He was traveling so much in the Roman Empire that he began to use his Roman name, Paul. Paul's work was to start churches, but he also wrote letters to young churches to help them with their problems. He wrote to the Philippians and the Ephesians. He wrote to the Thessalonians and the Corinthians. He even wrote to the Romans and told them he wanted to visit them and then go on to Spain. Paul turned toward Jerusalem for the last time. As soon as he came into the city, he went to the temple. He wanted to make a sacrifice. He was still a Nazirite, keeping strict Jewish law as well as being a Christian. People shouted that he didn't belong there. Some began to push him. The Roman soldiers came running. They pushed the people back with their shields, short swords, and spears. They saved Paul's life and marched him to the fortress Antonia. The Roman soldiers decided to beat him to find out why the Jews wanted to kill him. But that was when Paul told them he was a Roman citizen. He had to be taken to the Roman courts. He was taken to Caesarea on the coast, and after about 2 years he was put on a ship that was sailing to Rome to be judged in the law courts there. Paul sailed to Rome. His ship sank, but he was saved and went on anyway. Paul was kept a prisoner in his own house. A soldier guarded him, but he could go visit friends while he was waiting for the Roman court to decide what he had done wrong. Some say that Paul went on to Spain and then came back to Rome. Others think he was executed after the Great Fire, which burned Rome in the year 67. I like to think of Paul as still traveling on to the ends of the earth. Paul's work was to tell his story and to write letters. He began a story himself, and his letters are still being read in churches to this very day. Now I wonder, what part of this story you like best? I wonder what part is most important to you. And I wonder what part of this story is about you. Paul's travels started in Jerusalem, went to Damascus, and ended up in Rome. Now it is time to get out your work, crayons, paper, markers, and draw a story about what this means to you. Thank you for joining us. Bye. Bye.